So, hey, here we are again.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. We have a beautiful topic for tonight, from insight to real change. Would you like to say anything, Dorothy, or should I ask you a question first? Do you have anything in the mind?
I can I can actually I can actually elaborate a little bit how this topic
Mm-hmm.
actually came to be, because I was giving a talk about something, and one of the listeners um, kept asking for knowledge questions, and I was trying to talk about change and transformation. And I noticed that there was a misunderstanding between me and my listener about change, transformation, and knowledge and how they connect to each other. And I remembered not so long ago, I mean, 10, 20 years. um, well, in my life, it's not so long ago. Um, I remember that as a young scientist and young mother and a young person trying to figure out life, I had the same interest. I was very much interested in knowing myself and knowing uh, life and what to do. And I had a feeling like a weird sensation that something needed to change. And the way I was trying to approach it, or what I thought was the real way to go, was to understand and to know what to do so that I can then do and be differently. And it took me quite a while and a complete psychology study for years, and a lot of books. I've got shelves of books to prove. It took me a long time to realize that what I was deeply seeking, so the change I wanted to feel in my life, I wanted to feel different. And it doesn't come from knowing more or knowing different. It doesn't even come with a realization. I mean, realizations help, but they did not give me what I was really craving, which was a change in my state, in my feeling state, in my feeling about life, in the sense of purpose and meaning in my life. So I have full empathy with my listener who was trying to do what I was trying to do, and it's a perfectly logical and reasonable thing. It just doesn't work. It's um, yes, we need understanding. Yes, we need awareness. We need realizations. We need to aha. Aha is a very good one. Awareness is one step, a step. And it's not all, it's not the end. Awareness has to lead to some way of incorporating, embodying what I now know, what I understand. It needs an avenue, it needs a channel mm, to express. So the knowledge needs to be here in my heart and in my belly, in my body, so that it can express itself in life differently. And I was always trying to know more. And funny enough, there's even a yoga way of understanding. I'm a real yoga teacher amongst many things, but yoga has different paths. And there is bhakti yoga, which is the yoga of devotion, of love, of giving yourself to life. And there's also jnana yoga, which is the way of knowing. It's about knowing with the mind and penetrating reality. So I wasn't too far off. A lot of philosophers have tried what I tried to do. Um, it's just what I'm offering is a different way to approach change and transformation by
Mhm.
allowing it to be us, to be the change. So that was my intro into why is this topic actually interesting, because it sounds like a bit of a like a bit of a philosophical thing, and it probably is. So it's kind of lifestyle therapy. So change your worldview to change your state, kind of thing. But I think it's really it could be inspiring, I hope, for the one or other lady or gent who is very academic or cognitive, cerebral, deep in thought, and intelligent and thoughtful and insightful. And they just want to have a cherry on top of this beautiful cake. So that's what's on offer now. Does that make sense? Do I make sense with my?
Yes, that was a beautiful introduction. And you reminded me of my story too. And I think many of us went through this story of knowing and then aiming to feel, which also brings me back to the work that you do coming from the mind to the body, and how important integration is, because we know so much theory, we are so good, we can read it from the books, but until we fully live it, it doesn't make any change, of course. But there is a question. So, practically, imagine that there is someone coming to you and ask you, I already know this about myself, this and that, whatever topic they are going through. So, why isn't it changing? So, what would you say to this person if anyone approach you this way?
Well, what we usually do in life is, in a very high percentage of what we're doing and how we're living life, is on autopilot. You know, our habits, our patterns, they silently and in the background run our life. And these habits and patterns are not just how I get up in the morning, how I shower and brush my teeth, and how I have breakfast, and how I get to work, or what I do during the day. This is one side of habits, but there is a deeper habitual pattern, which is, yes, our thinking, but also our feeling. You know, we have preferences in feelings, we have emotional patterns, and we also have behavioral patterns. And they are very, very strong, because our nervous system that runs the show in the background the whole time, unless we pay conscious attention and we get really, really present. So when our nervous system is running on autopilot, it just picks what we've always done and what worked well. So it has a very strong tendency, a bias towards what has worked in the past. So our habits are deeply ingrained, and they run on many levels, and most of them are not conscious, subconscious even. And this is why when our nervous system is behind the steering wheel, we will not change. We will automatically do the same thing and feel the same thing and have the same beliefs and have the same thoughts about a situation. In fact, we are creating our life, the story of my life. We are creating based on some habit that we formed very long time ago. This is why also, you know, a lot of my clients, they come and say, I am always ruining my relationships the same way. I'm having the same issue with my colleagues and my friends and my partners and my kids and whoever, my dogs. And they notice, they realize it must have something to do with me, but I don't know what. I don't know why, because you know the famous you know you shouldn't. Yes, you know you shouldn't, but you're still reaching for whatever that thing is that helped you in the past. And for us to change on the level of the autopilot of the nervous system, we need a lot of repetition. We need a lot of safety. We need ideally even a healing community that can hold us to new standards that can encourage us and cheer us on, but that can also give us a little bit of a, a little bit of a soft, gentle push when we are veering off the garden path. This is why people who want lasting change concerning addictions or attachment patterns, relationships, they usually find a community. They find a group of like-minded people or people that who work on the same issues, simply because we can support each other. We know what it feels like to do the same thing over and over again, to run in the hamster wheel of people pleasing or saying yes even if we mean no. They know what it feels like, and they don't judge us for that, but they say, been there, done that, got the t-shirt, yeah, come on, we get this handled, we will practice. And then it's a lot of about practicing, because these patterns, these habits that we have, um, they have kept us safe. They are there for a reason. They are almost like our secret superpowers that kept us alive and safe and protected us from whatever harm our nervous system was perceiving. So, like, for example, there are people that are very self-criticizing. They, if a client tells me about a small thing that went wrong last week, it's like, I always, I never, like this. And it's almost like they're criticizing themselves before somebody else can do that. But it's a habit that's very hard to kill with your mind. I mean, you can challenge a belief, but it's much better to look at the embodiment in this, okay? Like in a positive embrace, saying, yeah, I notice that when you speak about your mistake, self-criticism comes very quickly. Can we just look at what the body was doing before this habit jumped in? So, what were you really sensing and feeling in the body, or what's coming with it? So, I'm not judging my client for having whatever the reaction is, but I'm embracing it and making it normal. So, not pathologizing it, but saying, there's a pattern maybe. Have you had this reaction before? Do you know this? So I'm asking for their realization, for their insight, for their awareness. And then they say, yes, I always do that, or something like that. And I say, So maybe this pattern actually wants to protect you. Is there anything that you can come up with where this pattern was useful in the past? So we're turning it around and we're saying, okay, let's use this insight, but make it more physical, make it make sense for the body as such, for the whole system. Because with this gentle and compassionate question, we actually get people to have a choice, to say, okay, I've got my insight and I got my pattern, but I'm a choice now. I'm a choice now. Do I run away from how that feels, from the discomfort, from the, ooh, there was a threat, oh, my throat is closing, or do I stay? and,
Mhm.
and this is the magic. And now we're coming to why change and transformation needs a bit more than understanding. So we realize this pattern comes when I feel I'm a failure or something like that, or I feel threatened, my ego, my integrity is threatened. Then this jumps in quickly, and I realize, oh, and then we can get curious, which is using the mind, but to get into the body, we can ask, okay, so if we were non-judgmental, which we never are, but let's try to put the judgment a bit to the softer side and say, okay, with curiosity, what's a possibility that this pattern is useful for? Is there anything that where this pattern might have been useful in the past? So we are getting into the curiosity business, but sneakily asking for this felt sense in the whole body as such. So what are the emotions here? What are we avoiding? And what is the body actually doing with this threatening failure or mistake or something? What's happening here? And when people get really curious about that, change is a possibility. Not by realizing, oh, I do this all the time, bad, bad, bad girl, but by realizing I have a reason for doing it. And I also have a choice. Yes, I feel threatened when this happens. And I can choose something else now. Sit with my therapist holding hands and breathing through the discomfort is one possibility. And if that's not available because it's feeling too bad and, too woo, then maybe we can regulate. Maybe we can put our attention onto something else. So there are a million ways that we can deal with something that we have identified as a feeling, thinking, behaving pattern. I have a tendency for long answers, right? Did you realize I was giving a very long answer to a very short question?
It's always nice and funny because you already answered questions that I still haven't had a chance to ask. So I really do it at once.
You can still try to ask them. Maybe there's a new answer coming
Yeah,
for you.
yeah. But still, I really liked your answer because, as I said before, that was also my story that I wanted to know with my mind. But from what you were saying, what I see in my story and with the story with the others, it's that we need to take responsibility because I didn't understand it also for many years that I do so much work and I go to so many seminars and nothing really changed that much. And I know that sometimes I was pushing myself. So with the pressure, it doesn't work. But from what you shared, I feel that compassion to ourselves is very important, being vulnerable, and not everyone is brave enough to go to big group of people or to therapists because maybe people feel or think that it's failure to feel not good or stuff like that. So from what you shared, it makes so much sense that it's our job to take responsibility for our own life and decide if we want to stay here or if we want to go deeper in the body. So the next question which I wanted to ask was, I think you touched it a bit, that what needs to happen inside a person for change to become real.
Hmm. What needs to change inside a person? I would say it's a little bit a mix of courage
Mhm.
and decision. You were mentioning that you went to a couple of seminars and you did this and that and change was kind of like reloading, okay? It was taking its time. Sometimes that is because we didn't feel safe enough in whatever the seminar surroundings were, or the group of people, or whatever. We didn't feel safe enough to try something new. In our nervous system, we have a setting that when we are threatened, when we do not feel safe, we resort to autopilot. Okay, our repertoire becomes narrow. We don't have a lot of choices. We usually have black and white, and I do this or I do that, and both are awful, but I don't see anything else. I don't really have a choice. But we also have a learning setting in our brain, and this is what needs to happen for us to have real change and transformation. We need our nervous system to switch from survival mode, protecting against harm, whatever harm is, from protective survival mechanism, it has to switch into a learning and connecting setting. You know, our brain can only learn when it is in an open, mildly activated, if you so wish. So a little bit of activation, like play, like laughter, like excitement, enthusiasm. That's not terrible. It's still sympathetic. So you don't always have to be parasympathetically quiet. You can be a little bit sympathetic and have some red hot chili pepper, soccer players, but your brain needs that setting, basically the connective mode, to actually learn new things. And for this mode of learning to switch on in your brain, you need a certain amount of felt safety. And I'm saying felt safety because it's not about the reality of how safe are you. It is about what does your nervous system decide how safe it is. Okay. So some people can relax in a relational field, so with other people and with groups. Some people can relax there, and others have a harder time or hard time even. And depending on what your preference from the nervous system settings is, smaller groups can be helpful, or bigger groups can be helpful, or a single therapist can be helpful. And then also, does it have to be male or female? Does it need to be a small group of friends for you to feel really relaxed, or does it have to be one person? Does it have to be a bigger group where you feel anonymous and you can kind of hide in the crowd and try new tricks? And when your brain is feeling enough safety, there is no absolute safety because we are vulnerable beings, but when your brain feels enough safety, it will switch into curiosity and playfulness and learning mode. And this is what I was mentioning earlier, to even you as a friend with your friends, when they share about some issue or some challenge, you can switch to curiosity. So stay away from judging, stay away from even commenting on something, but switch into, oh, that's interesting, and put curiosity in the mix, which gives them enough courage because now the brain is switching. You are curious, and with co-regulation, you're making them curious. And together, you are like playful children in the pit saying, oh, what can we do with this? And you pick at it from a playful place. And it's not like, it's kind of like, yeah, we all do these weird things. Let's see what kind of weird you are doing. And with this, you're switching your friend's brain. And then together you can explore, wow, why would I do that? Okay, this is the reason. And what other choices do I have? And then you play with your friend, what other choices are there? And then you kind of like, you embody in it, say, okay, what would that feel like? If you did that, what would that look like in your body? like this. Another very common one is, for example, not only self-criticism, but boundaries.
Mhm.
A lot of us have a little bit of a challenge when it comes to boundaries. We know they would be good for us. We have realized that we are maybe people pleasers and maybe saying yes too often and maybe not using the word no enough. And we might know that we should or shouldn't or whatever, fill that line, dot, dot, dot. And still we don't do it. When somebody, can you please? Yes, sure. Somebody phones us in the middle of the night and we answer. Somebody oversteps our boundaries and limits and we don't do anything about it. Not because we are stupid, but because the settings of our nervous system urge us to react in this old pattern, or, and then there is some space which is filled with terrible things that we rather ignore. We rather say yes, and we do that, and we bite our tongue, and we are, oh, I wanted to have a free weekend, and now I'm sitting with this jaw. But we do that rather than facing the discomfort of standing what's in that place of, I say no, or I don't do this. And, we create our own threats. But when you are a very good friend, you can sit with your friend and you can say, wow, I'm noticing you're having quite a strong reaction to this. It must be important for you. If it's too much for you, we can look at, you can look around, you can regulate them, co-regulate them by looking through the room, orienting in a different way, finding their feet, breathing out, by doing all these things to regulate. Or you're a good friend, you're sitting with them and say, wow, I wonder what that feels like. I wonder what the emotion is coming with it. I wonder what the energy is. I wonder what your body is doing. Can you tell me more? It's like a curiosity again. You ask, okay, can you tell me more? And then your friend probably has the courage to admit, "Wow, it feels awful. I'm starting to sweat. My throat is tight, and I know that's really weird." So they might say it's weird that they have this pattern, but you, as a good friend, you know it's very normal. You're running that too, or something like that. And then you can explore together. Okay, maybe we can sit with this feeling for a little bit, which now changes the setting in your nervous system in your brain, because you make what was a void of threatening impossibilities, you make that with your little curiosity and your co-regulation and your, wow, I wonder, you make this more accessible. So when your friend is now starting to feel what they feel in this void, they actually don't have to run away from that anymore. And the brain is really clever. This is why we like realizations and awareness and knowing and all of this, because our brain says, ha, look, it's not that threatening anymore. And then your brain says, maybe this trick actually works. But now we need repetition. And this is why at the seminars we do things over and over and over. Okay, we build up on them, but we repeat. You know, we co-regulate and we repeat, because it's not done once and then it's finished. But you have to give the brain new food, new fodder. It has to make a new pattern, you know. So when you want to replace the old one, you have to practice it with somebody who feels safe enough. And the best is to actually practice with a small group of humans, like a family. You know, your nervous system is actually not made to be an island. It's made to be connected to other people. It's made for small tribes, for small or bigger families, you know, not just a core family of two adults and a couple of kids, but it's made for a bit of a bigger family. And in that setting, our brain goes into connection and learning. This is how babies grow up. They just copy paste adults. You know, they just mirror the nervous system and they learn. So if you want to teach your nervous system new tricks, find a safe group of weird humans and then let your nervous system just learn by immersion. Okay? This is what we do at the seminars, because we have trainers there, and the trainers know how to regulate their own nervous system. They know how to stay open, connected, grounded, calm, and they can go excited and they can go quiet and deep. They can do that very easily. And with this regulated nervous system, they are holding everybody else in an embrace of learning brain, of connecting brain, of changing brain, very physically from the nervous system perspective. So I sometimes joke and I say, I'm just the clown in the front that's distracting everybody. But the work is coming from the group of trainers who give a new space for experience. They offer a safe and regulated place where the nervous systems that came in there, they pick up, aha, we can do something different. Ah, we can change, but from the inside. So that's why curiosity, a bit of courage, and a lot of safety and some connection are the ingredients for people if they want real transformation, if they want real change.
Beautiful. When you were sharing about seminars, I would like to ask you another question, which, because I think there is difference when someone comes just for one seminar and maybe he's like, or she's like, okay, I like it, maybe I will come again, or maybe I will come after 2 years. But it's different if someone is in that energy for a longer period of time. So imagine, so what makes long-term spaces or groups different from one-time experiences? We can also, you know,
Well, it is a little bit like with the babies. It's the continuity, it's the consistency of regulation. Human beings are not always regulated. We get upset about something and we get sleepy and we get grumpy and we get happy. So our nervous system is happily going up and down during a day many, many times. And in the seminars also, we go up and down many, many times. And it happens in that, what I explained earlier, in that field of safety, in that field of connection. So the nervous systems of the human who come more often than just once. I mean, once is a beautiful experience and surely healing and helpful. But if you come repeatedly, your nervous system starts to really gel into it. It really starts to adopt new ways of being, feeling, thinking. And some people realize the change immediately. And for some people, it's more progressive, deep change. They are realizing, oh, I'm not feeling so much of pressure on myself anymore. I don't judge myself so harshly anymore. Or they realize quite the opposite. When all of a sudden they do judge themselves, they realize, wow, this voice was quiet for a while. Interesting. And when they come back, it's almost like in a family, you realize your old brothers and sisters and your cousins and whatever, there's a familiarity in it. Your nervous system does. And it's the same when you come back from the seminars, you kind of pick up on where you left last time. And it's hard in our families of origin and our original relationships and communities. It's difficult to change organically, slowly, and authentically because they hold you to your old standards. So even if they wish you all the best and they want you to whatever, be able to let go of your addictions or stop people pleasing or finally set some boundaries or change the relationship that was toxic, even if they wish you the best, they are still expecting you to change by nothing, to just change, stop it. So if you want to stop smoking, just stop. If you ever had anybody telling you, just relax, you know how easy that is. Or the yoga teacher who says, open your chakras or open your heart. It's like, yes, and how? And that how is what you cannot understand, okay? You have to feel it, you have to embody it, you have to be in it for it to become real for you. Simple example, a kiss. Okay, young people are interested in, okay, what's a kiss like? Okay, how do we kiss? What does that feel like? And what's that like? Can you ever explain that? You have to apply two soft tissues to each other and apply so much pressure and open just so many millimeters and do whatever, whatever, whatever. You cannot explain it. It's not possible. But it's very possible to have that experience, to just explore and embody whatever that desire is. I mean, consensual, obviously, but you know what I'm saying. There are things you cannot explain, you can only experience. And when it comes to change of deeply ingrained patterns, you have to experience something new. Okay, if you want to let go of your patterns of addiction, even if your addiction is people pleasing or saying yes or rescuing other people or fixing relationships or changing other people's moods. We're all superheroes when it comes to this. But if you want to really change this, you have to find out, what was this pattern protecting you from feeling? So what's the real core of this? Not in the sense of the reason why and now I understand, but what's the feeling aspect? What is my body really doing when this happens? So, for example, when you have a chronic people pleaser, you as their friend see in their face, in their shoulders, and in their neck when they start to people please. Okay, when they switch into yes mode. And sometimes we, as their friends, we cringe because we say, no, 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 don't. Or when your very good friend is telling you, oh, I'm such an idiot. And you want to say, no, you're not, you're so intelligent. Yeah, well, but it doesn't work, does it? So telling somebody, no, you're not, is not helping them at all. Quite the opposite. Now they have to defend themselves and say, yes, of course I am, because I always and never. So unfortunately, unknowingly, you've pushed them into a defensive reaction. But what is helpful, like I said in the beginning, switch to curiosity, switch to connection, and switch to choice. You know? Okay, you like that feeling? Great. You don't like that feeling? Maybe we have an alternative. Maybe we can change something in the body, in the posture. Sometimes we have to change the circumstances, but that's later than, oh, not always, but sometimes that comes later than the change in me, like taking responsibility and not seeing myself as a victim, but seeing myself as an actor, seeing myself as somebody who is a choice now.
Yes, thank you. I have so many stories in my head now because you are telling.
Well, why
And
don't you tell us a story? Give us an example of your
uh,
insight and your change. Why not?
yeah, that's what I wanted to share. That from my own experience, what you just said, for me, it's important to be with the people, but with the same people. Like if I used to go to seminars, not your seminars, but many years ago, some other seminars where we didn't work with the body, of course, it was mostly with the mind or with like, and then I was jealous that some people can see, some people can feel, and I was always like, what's wrong with me? And then I was always judging myself. I was not patient and I wanted to be somewhere else where I am now. So not accepting the whole thing. But from my case, what's helping is I need a lot of time, a lot of patience with myself, a lot of compassion with myself, and having the same people preferably. Now I have friends, but before, when I didn't know how to work with body and I didn't have this tribe around me, then it was more difficult. But I realized that my mind was always much quicker than my body. So if anyone asked me, uh, so how does it feel in your body? I have no idea. My mind was so tricky that it didn't allow me to even go to the feelings because I was used to live like that for many years, of course. So I had to redo it all in a way that I had to really take small, small steps. And I could see when I look back how strict I was with myself because I could see the people around me being somewhere else. And I was just like, oh, I'm so jealous and why it doesn't work for me. But it takes time and it takes, like you said, safety. So I had to learn how to feel safe. And even I realized that so many people were helping me, were holding space for me, but I wasn't able to receive the help because I was so closed. My door around me, there was like armor around me, which didn't allow me to even feel safe. So I remember in one of your seminars when one trainer came to me, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, I was so open and vulnerable, and she was just sitting there looking into my eyes. And only from the eyes, I could see that she loves me and she's just holding space for me in that moment. And it was so difficult for me to accept only that energy. So I was like, who, after so many years of work, I thought at least I can do it, but I couldn't. So it takes a lot of time and patience and compassion with myself, not judging, not comparing, because comparing it's a big one. Then we can get stuck and then feel, oh, this is nothing. I didn't do anything. I'm not moving. But I'm moving where? I mean, I cannot compare myself to others because it's my life and I just want to feel good in myself and do what I love. So, yeah, there were many things happening now when you were sharing it because I'm a people pleaser and I always was, but it's much better now, of course, thanks to all these things that we talk about. But what helped me the most is this kind of work that you do, which I love being part of, and also, yeah, being brave enough to open and observe and go deep to see what my patterns are and then do something with it. I can live like I lived before that I see it, but then I do nothing about it. So, but going deep and feeling it, sometimes with some friends I shared, but I feel this, but I feel then they're like, oh, you're too sensitive. You feel so much. Yes, I am very sensitive. But if the person is not able to feel, then it's easy to judge. But it was a lot of changes in my life that I had to just
Yeah.
accept that this
And
is the.
sometimes when we have grown, like you mentioned now that you have grown a lot, we can actually lend our compassion and our empathy to our friends, because we've been there and you know what it feels like. So we can, like I said in the beginning, we can connect to our friends or somebody who's going through difficulties, and we can sit with them in compassion. Like you said, that person was holding space for you, but without wanting anything really. A good allowing the change and the transformation to develop by itself. A good coach is not pushing you anywhere, but holding you and holding you accountable to what you decided yourself. It's like, okay, we have choice here. And it's not about being perfect at all, because you mentioned comparison. We are comparative. We are comparing ourselves to other and to ourselves in the past, and to what we want to be and so on. And usually we are harsh. We are much harsher to ourselves than we would be to any of our friends. And here's the thing. We can use this tendency to compare in a positive way when we switch again the brain into the learning brain, and with curiosity say, okay, I'm trying to be less of a people pleaser. So who do I know in my circle of friends who has good boundaries in a way that I like in a friendly way, in a connected way, but still standing up for themselves and being connected and open and friendly and authentic and saying no when they must. And then I can start to copy them. It's almost like I use them as a role model, but not by saying, oh, they are so good and I'm so bad, but by saying, hmm, I like this friend a lot and they have something that I want to learn. So it's like copy paste. So we're modeling, we're kind of hanging out with them and feeling with our
Mhm.
nervous system how they do that. This is how babies learn. They are with their moms and dads and friends and family, and they observe. Okay. And this is something that we can cultivate. But if we keep ourselves scared and defended by adding shame and frustration and judgment and rigidity and harshness, then we keep ourselves in the defensive survival reactions. But if we switch this with our own choice into interesting curiosity, connection. I first of all have to connect to myself to give myself enough space to change. I have to make it possible that I make a new choice by being friendly and compassionate with myself. And yes, very difficult when we are starting with this, because we feel you should and you shouldn't and you must and whatever. And if we can borrow our friends' love and compassion for that, it's a very good start, because they see us succeeding and they celebrate with us, and they see us failing and they kind of like take the dust off our shoulders and encourage us to stand up again. They are not saying, oh, don't worry, this wasn't a mistake or this wasn't hard, but they say, oh, must have been hard. Want to tell me more? In connection, acknowledging it, but also encouraging, okay, let's try again. Let's do this. We got this. So we're borrowing their courage, we're borrowing their compassion, and we're borrowing their choice and their way of being in life until something in ourselves wakes up and changes into, hey, I can do it myself.
Yes. So if someone is
And
at the big, mhm, yeah, yeah,
so
continue.
it is actually that easy, because sometimes people say, it sounds so easy. It is. Like, I want to give an example of you mentioned the seminars.
Mhm.
Yes, we have people who keep coming back to the seminars. And the change you see in these people is extraordinary. Okay. It's like, wow, are you the same person? But what's even more extreme is we have this coach training. Okay. This is for people who want to really work deep on themselves, or who want to actually use the work on other people. You don't have to, but it's very deep work on yourself. And we started as a group of individuals that was very various and different. Okay, it was really original, authentic, different people. And we were watching each other through the course of all these, the whole coach training. It takes 1.5 or 2 years even. And we had little body groups and support groups, and we were encouraging each other. So people practice by being together with other people and using the techniques on each other. And what we could see there was next to a miracle. We could see people changing so radically without rigidity, without any harsh program, simply by experiencing the very normal, very human setting of I have a supportive family, my body group, my buddies, they are supporting me no matter what. If I have to get angry and upset about something, if I have to vent and tell them everything is horrible, they are there, yeah, 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 listening. And if I'm celebrating something, yay, they cheer me on. And if I'm being a victim and going too deep in my story, they might compassionately say, hello, anybody home here? And they will pull us back into the safety of connection and togetherness and compassion. And this is priceless. So it's not so much, and this is to the beginning of my whole talk here about the listener, this is not so much about what you learn to know, not about the intellectual knowledge that you learn during the coach training. This is really about putting it into practice, living it, experiencing what it feels like when you are not in a toxic or dysfunctional family or setting or a relationship that's actually not good for you. But when you are in a human setting, one person is failing, they are helping, and then this person is failing and they are helping, and then I'm failing and somebody's helping, and then nobody is failing and everybody is celebrating. So it's human, we're resetting into, okay, we have a vast field of possibilities, and we can share in this. We can share in the joys, and we can also share in the hard stuff, because there were people on the training that had to endure big life challenges during the training. But it makes the whole world of a difference when you are in a tribe, in a setting, in a community that can allow you to go through it in your own way. And you know that you are still belonging there, you know that you are still connected there, and you know that you can take it at your own pace. Some are fast and some are slow. And, holding each other accountable, but also giving each other space to explore in a field that is less judgmental than life out there. And that's how can I say, that is the biggest asset of humans, that they can be each other wolves, but they can also be each other's healers. We just have to allow our natural friendly human to come out of the bushes, to come forwards, to actually be a blessing, to be a presence that makes change possible.
Oh, beautiful. What I would just add is that when I see someone in the group sharing or going through something very not easy, it's so inspirational to be in the field. So sometimes we don't even realize, sometimes maybe we are afraid that, oh, I'm not going to open and it's so deep that I'm going what I'm going through. But it's such a big gift when we share our story or our process, because it brings so much and it can trigger the people, maybe they were waiting their whole life to activate the wound or something. So I always love it in the seminars and in the circles that we can help each other, because when we are brave to open, then we help others to open too. So this is what I love also, that
Yes.
such a gift to open.
Yes. And again, this is the setting of courage and connection and creativity, actually. So it's all the C words.
Yeah,
Courage and connection
true.
and creativity and curiosity, you know, and calm and compassion and, you know, all this. Yeah.
Beautiful.
In IFS, they actually call it the self, you know, the qualities of self. But this is what it is, you know, we all have these qualities. And for others, it's sometimes easier to bring them forwards. So when we are sitting with a friend in need, it is much easier to switch into compassion and, you know, all of this for somebody else. But when we are left alone with ourselves, we are like, it's more difficult. So this is why we borrow each other's nervous system for co-regulation, because another friend can give that to me where I can't give it to myself. And this is brings us back to the beginning. Real change, real transformation happens when it's a lived experience. When my body and my nervous system can feel something new and can experience something new. Because for our brain to learn, this has to have a felt sense of some emotion and some sensual, some physical sensual feeling. And then it gets stored as a good memory. Otherwise, it's just book knowledge that you can spit out, but it has no meaning as such.
Mhm. Okay, and last question is always at the end as a message. I like it when you do it. If there is one thing you would want people to take from this conversation about real change, what would it be?
What would it be? Allow compassion and curiosity to take more space. We can always be more rigid and more harsh.
Mm.
And it's a proper talent to decide for gentleness and kindness. So, one recommendation would be try, it's almost biblical, it is biblical. Try to do unto yourself like you would do on your friends.
Mm. Thank you.
Was that your last question?
Yes, yes, it was.
Yay! So, thank you very much for this lovely conversation.
Thank you too.
And I hope it could inspire the one or other person to be a bit more kind, compassionate, and curious and see what change wants to come from the inside. Thank you very much.
Thank
See
you.
you next time.
See you. Mm.